Welcome to the Work Harder Mama podcast with Michelle. I'm Michelle Hollingsworth, and this is a podcast for moms who want to work with heart wholeheartedly instead of just working harder. Hi, and welcome to the Work Harder Mama podcast. Today, I have the honor of having the author and nonprofit and coach and mentor and speaker, Bob Goff, here. He is the chief balloon inflator and he owns a nonprofit, Love Does. He does speaking and coaching and mentoring for upcoming authors. He also is partnered with the Retreat Center, the Oak Center near San Diego, California. He's the author of 4 New York Times bestsellers, Love Does, Everybody Always, Dream Big and Undistracted. And his newest one, devotional, is called Catching Whimsy, that just released in December, I believe. Is that right, Bob?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Yeah, that's a lot of fun when you release a book. It's that you've been working on it for a year and a half, and then finally it's out into the world. So that's the one.
Well, I wanted to ask you, so what tips can you give to those who want to write a book or become an author? What are your top?
Yeah, there was a study done that I think it was some huge number, like 97% of people, when they were asked, want to write a book at some point. But yet, it's a really small percentage of people that actually get to write a book. And sometimes we're waiting for permission to do things we already have permission to do. And we come by it because it's a combination of insecurity and humility, and it's a rich cocktail of a number of things. But for me, what was really helpful is I just started writing bad words. I don't mean like cuss words, just like bad words. Because if you try to write great words, I've never had that day, but I've had plenty of days, almost every day, where I write bad words, and then you make the bad words better. So the whole idea of just capturing, it's like netting butterflies when they come by and one lands on your nose, like net it. And then what you do is you'll take all the butterflies, all the stories that have the same color wings, and kind of lump them together. So, and then all of a sudden you look up and you got a book. So I would say for people, boy, don't let the this sense of like writing a book be ominous. If you write 10 sentences a day for 100 days, you're done. Isn't that crazy?
That's
10
great.
sentences a day. Like we've already spoken 10 sentences. So that whole idea of just capture a couple butterflies, you don't need to find the monarch, the unusual, the whatever. Catch them off. It doesn't matter. Get a caterpillar. It'll get better later.
I love that. You make it sound so easy and
It is. It's super easy. I can barely spell cat. Um, and yet, you can, with a little spell check, you can get it done.
That's great. Thank you so much. Also, I wanted to ask if you had any general advice or specific advice for those who are interested in starting their own nonprofit.
Yeah, I would say my best advice is like don't take advice from people, but instead get their observations.
Mm.
So I was gonna sail across the ocean. I've done that a couple times for reasons I don't understand because I just hurl the whole way. But I was gonna sail to Hawaii, and I was talking to a guy, and he said, "Oh, you have to make these, make sure you get these sails and this life raft and this food." And so, and I asked him, I'm like, "Oh, have you sailed across the ocean before?" He said, "No, I've never left Iowa." He had a lot of advice. He just didn't have a lot of lived experiences. And so, what I tried to do with people is to say, what are your lived experience? What's your experience with starting a nonprofit? And mine was pretty simple. I was a lawyer at the time, and I wanted to help out, as most people do. Maybe not a lot of lawyers, but most people want to be helpful. And I thought, what if I get a hold of this outfit that's doing great stuff? And they were indeed doing great stuff and doing lawyer stuff all around the world. And I said, "Can I come work for you?" And they said, "No." I was like, "But I'll do it for nothing." And they're like, "No, thanks." So then I went to this other nonprofit, and I'm protecting the names of the innocent. It was just good judgment on their part to not let me jump in. But I said, "Can I work for you?" And this nonprofit was spending $700,000 a year on lawyers. And I had a bunch of lawyers working for me. I said, "I'll just do your stuff for nothing." And they said no. I'm like,
Wow.
what the heck? So I was like, It was just inexplicable. And I wasn't mad at them. I was just kind of befuddled. And then I realized that I don't need permission. I can just start my own.
Mm.
So I started, and we had one donor, and it was me. And then we just started little things. And then all of a sudden, little things became a little bit bigger. I remember Uganda was in the middle of a civil war. 400,000 or 500,000 kids were out of school. And I thought we could start a school. Pretty simple. So I told everybody, we put it on the national radio, we put flyers everywhere. We told hundreds of thousands of children, you can come to our school for free. And on opening day, we had 9 kids.
Oh,
I think 8 of them didn't want to be there. But that 9 turned into 19 and
mm,
turned into 190 and it turned to 1,090. And now there's what are there? I think last count there's 1,700 kids living on campus in beds in 80 buildings. And it came not because I'm a swell guy, but I found a bunch of Ugandans that wanted to really serve their community and love on people. And then instead of having one donor, there was many of them.
mm,
So I would say for your listeners, my experience, not my advice, is that you start. Faith is a big deal for me. There's a great verse at Zechariah 4:10. It says, "Don't despise small beginnings, because the
mm,
Lord delights in watching the work begin." And I think of that when I think of people starting out. Just start somewhere and then do the best you can. A couple things will work, couple more won't. But we're not defined by our successes or our failures, but we just want to show up in different ways. And you don't need to go across an ocean, go across the street.
mm. I love that. And I love that verse you mentioned. So, do you have a favorite Bible verse?
There's one that is missing. I forget where it is. It's in one of the Gospels, and it was like kind of like like Mark got called by Mrs. Mark away to something, and it skips a verse. So I was thinking of a witty answer. The one that comes to mind is Galatians 5:6. It says the only thing that counts is faith expressed in love. And
Yeah.
so, like that idea, sometimes people think of faith and they think of all the accumulated knowledge they have. Wouldn't it be creepy if I knew where you had gone last weekend, like
Mhm.
the wedding you went to, or the thing you did or who you hang out with? What if I knew your mom's name? Would that be like, dude, like you don't know me well enough to know that stuff? And yeah, I knew a lot of people that knew Jesus' mom's was Mary, and he went to a wedding at Cana, and they had all these facts, and that's actually what stalkers do.
Mhm.
Stalkers collect facts, and friends show up. And so I really think in terms of this idea of just showing up, but showing up with love, like faith expressed in some kind of action, and not because God needs our help, because he wants our hearts. And so if I showed up at your house for dinner, and I might, I would not come over empty handed. I'd have something, I'd have a loaf of bread, a quiche, I'd come with something. And so showing up for the world every day, showing up with some love, faith expressed in love, showing up not empty handed, but saying, you know what, I think I have something to contribute today. Sometimes it's just our availability. We can just contribute by being available to people.
Yeah. With the recent wildfires in California, I know you were collecting items, pass out. What advice can you give to local areas that maybe have their own emergency or natural disaster? How can they get involved like you did with your nonprofit? How can they start small but make a big impact and show up?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I think instead sometimes we have in mind that we need to buy a truck.
Mm,
And Love Does has a truck and we fill it full of all kinds of stuff. But if you've got a trunk or a boot, as they say in the UK, so if you've got a trunk in your car, fill it full of stuff.
mm,
Like just show up at things and say, it's not much, but it's this small beginning. And there's something about that. It won't be the stuff that you bring, it'll be the people that you meet. You'll meet some like-minded people and they'll say, oh, what can we do? And you can even meet some people that have a different worldview than you, a different life experience. There's a guy uh, who is relatively controversial, and he had shown up with the stuff that he makes. And he's kind of a controversial, edgy guy. I don't care. We had something in common. Just like, let's just help people. You bring all your stuff, I'll bring all my stuff. And then we're not thinking about whatever divides us. We're just saying we have this common purpose. And that's the book of Acts for people that haven't been exposed to that. It's just kind of all the things Jesus' friends did after he left for heaven. In Acts, the second chapter, and again in the fourth chapter, it says that they broke bread together and they had things in common and that their numbers were added to daily. I kind of get the idea that you just break some bread, pound some carbs, get some Twinkies, like whatever it is, go get a Slurpee. But go do something like where you're breaking bread together and then go do something together, have something in common. And then what it does is it creates this uh, uh, shared experience that you can build on. And so I try to do that with people, even people that are a little bit prickly. There's one guy that started a movement that's a kind of a nationwide movement. And I don't have many people I kind of do this like eye roll with, but I was like, every time he would say something, I'd be like, dude, get a life. So I realized I was being kind of harsh in my mind towards this. And I don't say snarky things on the internet and all that, but I was like, dude, you're just crazy. So I heard he ended up the number one trending thing on Twitter because he made a big mistake. And so I know a guy who knew him. And so I called him up. I said, "Hey, it's Bob Goff here." He's like, "Bob who?" I'm like, "I know, I get that all the time." But I heard about this really hard thing you're going through. I just want to let you know that I was really sorry to
Mm,
hear that. I just want to see if you're hanging in there okay. And in this moment of transparency, he said, like, man, you don't know half of it. I've gotten 4 death threats this week. I've got to
mm,
move. My mom-in-law lives with us and got a couple kids, and we need to split. And I thought, what if I help you move? And so
mm,
I flew across country to where he lived. And I showed up at his door, and there was a box. It said China on it. I was assuming it wasn't the country. And so I picked up this box, and the bottom broke out of the box. I broke every single plate he had. I had known this guy for 1 minute, and I just destroyed this family heirloom. And he looked at me, and I thought, oh, I'm going to get both barrels from this guy because he's pretty colorful in the way
mm.
that he describes people and events. And he looked at me and he said, "Rookie move." Like, what an awesome guy. And so this is now, gosh, 8, 9 years later, we're still friends. And it was because we had a shared experience at his expense. Our shared experience was me screwing up. And there's
Mm,
something beautiful about that. We think everything has to be up and to the right. And some of the shared experiences can be down and to the left. Like you
mhm.
tried something, just didn't work. And you go like, well, that was that.
Wow. That's a great thing that you flew all the way across the country and and the first thing you did you thought was a big blunder, but he took it in
Oh, he's such
stride.
a so cool guy. He was actually trending on Instagram or Twitter or something again. And he made actually even a bigger mistake. And so I called him up. I'm like, "Oh, buddy, how you doing?" He's like, "Dude, you can't believe this. I've got to move again."
Oh
And I said,
no.
"Can I help you?" He's like, "Oh, heck no."
You did
So you
enough
got
the
to
first
know
time.
your friends and know what they're good at and what they're not good at.
Oh, that's a good advice. Great advice. Okay, so I have a question about you put your phone number in the back of your books. So how often does your phone ring?
Oh my gosh, I put it on silent while we're talking, but there's
Okay.
3 million people that have my cell phone number, and
Hmm.
I get all these crazy calls. I got a call from a young guy, and I said, "Hello, it's Bob here." He said, "Man, I'm on my honeymoon, and I just wanted to give you a call." And I said, "Man, I got 4 words for you. Put the phone down." And another woman called up and she said, "The devil's in my bathroom." I'm like, I just said hello. And she's like, "The devil's in my bathroom." I'm like, "I've got teenage boys. I know exactly how you feel." Um, but I asked her, "Who's your best friend?" And she said, "There's a woman named Mary." And I said, "Call Mary up. You don't want to face this alone. And I bet it'll turn out okay." And a couple hours later, I got a call back and she said, "Devil's gone." And I'm like, I don't know what was going on in her bathroom, but I do know that this sometimes people just need to be reminded, have a tap on the shoulder to call a good friend. And
Yeah.
so if we're safe people, I don't want people to meet my opinions. I want them to meet my faith. I want them to meet love. And so, because I'm a Jesus guy, but I'm not trying to like do a solid for Jesus. I'm not trying to help him. I'm not his spin guy. I'm not his PR guy. But what I want to do is express my faith and love. And then if it's for real, then people are going to understand. They're going to see what's going on in my life and they'll find beautiful things about their life. They'll start seeing that in their life.
So if you could choose what you would be remembered for, what would it be? I know you've been a lawyer, you've been a best-selling author, you've been a speaker, a coach, a nonprofit. So those are all great things that you've done with your life. And you're also a father and a grandfather, right? Grandfather?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. We made 3 people. They made 4 people. So it's a church with new spouses and kids and all that. We're a church of 12.
Okay.
Every time the grandkids come over, I'm like, one of you will betray me. Like, is it me? Um, yeah, I think I have an interesting exercise I do with some of my musician friends in Nashville. And it's this, you take away whatever you're known for, and whatever's left is who you are. So if
Hmm.
you take away Bob the lawyer, then whatever's left is Bob, like the dad and husband, all that. I wrote some books. Take away Bob the balloon guy, Bob the guy that writes books, and then whatever's left I still get to dad and grandfather and
Hmm.
a friend to some people. Take away all the things, keep stripping it down to the chassis. And I think that when I'm in a jar or a snow globe, but that might be more fun or gross. When I'm gone, I want to be remembered for my availability. So
Hmm.
he was the guy that was always available. He left to everybody his cell phone number.
Hmm.
Sometimes it goes around the bend a little bit. We have stalkers now. Uh,
Mm.
can always tell a stalker because they'll always say, I'm not a stalker.
Oh, wow.
All evidence to the contrary. I went to turn on the coffee pot on my back porch. There's a guy at 5 in the morning sitting on my back porch. And I'm like, hello, kind of like Billy Crystal.
Oh.
Uh, and he said, I'm not a stalker, almost predictable. And he said he'd read one of my books and he just wanted to experience a kid got engaged in my backyard. And he said, I just want to experience what it'd be like to be in your backyard. And I'm thinking in my thought bubble, you're going to experience a restraining order.
Hmm.
But one of the things that we want to do is just be kind with people, be a little bit more generous with our explanations instead of catastrophizing and say, oh, I'm in danger. This is just a young man that needs to work on his people skills a little bit. He needs to read Henry Cloud's book called Boundaries.
Yeah.
Instead of making him feel small or creepy or calling the cops, what if you just said, hey, I totally get the spirit behind that, but backyard is not the place to do it because if my wife, Sweet Maria, had come down and turned on the coffee pot and found you, this would be an alternate ending.
Hmm. For sure.
You're meeting the one that is going to give you a generous explanation right now. But if you do that, you're going to probably end up with some rock salt in you. Um, so what I want to do is be remembered for somebody who is available, and yet I had a sense of purpose. And so that would be you could be really available and aimless, and I would be like to be available and purposeful. Like I know what I'm doing. I was just reading a really interesting book about a rowing team in the United Kingdom, and they were always in last place. And they decided to adopt a new kind of rubric to see their world and their life and their decisions through. And then it was this: does it make the boat go faster? Isn't that
Mm.
beautiful? So
Yes.
every decision they had to make to say, if somebody said, "Will you come participate in this event?" They say, "Will this make the boat go faster?"
Mm.
Deciding about an exercise routine. Will this make the boat go faster? Deciding whether to take a break. I don't know. Will this make the boat go faster? And the predictable ending of the story is they won the gold medal
Wow.
because they changed their mind to say, will this make the boat go faster? They had purpose, they had intent, they knew what they were aiming for. And I
Mhm.
think if faith guides your steps, you could be aiming for a more sincere faith. If humanity guides your steps, you just want to engage more people. But whatever it is, getting distracted by watching what everybody else is doing will not make your boat go faster. Like staying on topic, just deciding I'm going to be available, and I'm not looking for consensus. I'm trying to build a kingdom. So building consensus, you could spend your whole life getting everybody to agree with you, but instead saying, I'm trying to make the boat go a little faster.
I love that. I love that. So, is there anything going on with you right now that you're super excited about that you'd want to share?
Yeah, we're building a university, which is like, for a guy that barely got out of high school, is a really large undertaking. I've just told you everything I know about a university.
Mm.
Uh, but it's in Gulu, Uganda. And so this place that was ground zero for this 25, 30-year civil war, 40,000 children abducted, we're going to take that place and we've bought the land. We've already got those 1,800 students in an adjacent parcel. So this is really turning into a bit of a city. Like if you go to northern Uganda, like it's one of those kind of like, can anything good come out of Nazareth things? But it's just such a remote area. And yet it's just teeming with kids. So we break ground next week. And the fun part is not just building a university. And this isn't just like a brick building with a cardboard sign that says university that's kind of misspelled. This will be for 1,500 students with offering PhD programs and spanning, 100 acres. And we just bought a square mile next to it, and we got 6 giraffes. So we're going to do a habitat and just have giraffes make baby giraffes. I don't know how that works either. I imagine we're just going to pump in some Barry White music. So across the Savannah. So the whole idea, the whimsy part about that is you can have a university, but that doesn't emote a lot of creativity and all that. But have a university and 6 giraffes. Now, here's the dilemma. Where do you get a giraffe? You can't just buy the eggs on Amazon, and you can't just buy like 3-day-old giraffes. But it turns out the president of Uganda owns all the giraffes,
Oh, wow.
3,740 of them. And I don't know him, but I do know his wife. And so I went to her and I said, hey, let me tell you about the university, but first, let me tell you about the giraffes. And she got so excited about it. She ran over and grabbed him by the ear. And we sat down and we talked about giraffes for an hour. And we walked out of there with 6 giraffes. So my point is this, find a way. Like if you want to make your boat go faster, get your head on a swivel, get some tremendous lasting ideas. I'm not trying to think, is it going to work? The decisions I'm making now is it going to last? Because
Mm.
a lot of things will work, but they won't last. So
Right.
what I want to do, think of all these movements or things that make a big splash for a short period of time, and they worked, but they didn't last.
Yeah.
So a university through the generations, that'll last. A whimsy, that'll last. Like
Mm.
start bringing all your creativity to bear, and then just start saying, what can I do? Instead of asking everybody else what they can do, to say, well, what could I do to make this possible? And then make some moves. It might be financial moves, there might be relational moves, but to just make moves, you don't want to keep it just brain candy. Just
Mm.
thinking about it, just be like faith expressed in love.
I love how you don't know a whole lot about giraffes, but you're willing to learn, move from there. You're not stuck in the I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it turns out they eat acacia trees. And then before they drop drafts off, they do kind of like foster parenting. They do a home study to
Mm.
see, is this adequate place to have this foster child? So the same thing with giraffes. And so I planted 10,000 acacia trees
Oh,
where
wow.
the giraffes are going to be. And I told the guys, make it look like they've been there for a while.
Yeah.
So when they come to do the home study, they're going to find nothing but giraffe food. And
Mhm.
so I think we can salt the mind. We don't just say a prayer. I mean, say a prayer on the way. Like while you're making moves, say the prayer. I hope we get these giraffes while you're planting 10,000 trees so that the person, when they do the inspection, they'll say, wow, this is be a perfect habitat for giraffes. I'm like, I know, right?
Yes.
So what I want to do is have people activate things, not just there's a phrase that I came up with a little while ago, like a hope without a plan is a wish. And I
Hmm.
don't want to just be wishing on falling stars. I want to just activate a plan, find something that'll be lasting, and then make some moves.
Thank you so much for your time today
Oh,
and
yeah. So
words
fun
of
for me.
wisdom.
Yeah. And then the thing that you're doing, what is it that lights you up? What is it that you're gonna like want people to carry away from your podcast?
So it's geared to moms, but we have guests on that aren't moms. So, we're not picky on who has words of wisdom because we can learn from anybody. But the goal is to give just hope and nuggets of wisdom, encouragement, and let moms know that they're not alone, and help them make that next step of what they're wanting to do, whether that's a goal or a dream or just hanging in there, just making it to the next day or the next nap or the next milestone with their child, just letting them know that they're not by themselves, that we've all been there and we're all going through it, and we're all just trying to survive some days, and then other days we're reaching for the stars, and that's okay too.
Yeah, think about hanging targets. If you went to a shooting range, the
Mm-hmm.
you would have some targets that are close, like some that are medium, and some that are far away. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe for moms that are out there to say, I just need a target that's close. I need to
Mm-hmm.
hang. I just need to get through today.
Mm-hmm.
But don't do that to the exclusion of saying, lift your eyes a little bit and to say, what would be a medium range target that I'm aiming for? And you don't want to just say, like, I want to be happy because I'm like all in on that, but to say what would happy look like. So let's like hang a target as specifically as we can. And then a long-term thing, like I want to have a great relationship with my kids, which would be super noble. To say, what are the things I'm going to do right now with one of the short range targets that's going to be in alignment with that long range thing? So I've got grandkid number one in the other room building things out of Legos with
Yeah,
grandma. That would be a short-term target that's going to serve a long-term goal. And
right.
so, like that whole idea of just being strategic, and I would call that strategic whimsy. It's
Mm.
a veneer of yippee skippy, but underneath that, there's a mile of strategy. And that's what moms do really well.
Yeah, and we need a lot more whimsy in our life
Oh, heck yeah.
someday.
Call me up if you're feeling a little whimsy deficient.
Mhm.
So, if you need some vitamin D, you open up the blinds a little bit, let the sun come in. And if you need a friend, find a couple. If you can't find a group of men or women to hang with, then make a group and say, nothing brings people in like pizza and
That's right.
Pop-Tart.
Pop
So
Tart.
just say, like, we're in. Yeah.
And Bob has whimsy to share. You heard it
Come
here.
on.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. I so appreciate you being on the Work Harder Mama podcast. This is Michelle Hollingsworth, and we've had Bob Goff today. If you need to look up his latest author book, it is Catching Whimsy 365 Days of Possibility, and his website is bobgoff.com. And we so appreciate you, Bob, and you sharing your life with us today and giving us the time. Thank you.
You bet. And blessings on you moms out there.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you for listening to the Work Harder Mama podcast. If you would like to learn more about any tips that are shared on the podcast, I did write a book. It's a devotional for moms. It's called Work Harder Meditations for Moms, season by season. You can also follow us on Instagram at Work Harder, which is WorkHearter, or Work Harder Mama. On Facebook, we are at Work Harder Press, and our website is www.workharder.com.